Hello and welcome to another episode of Become Empowered. If you enjoyed today's episode, if you can give us a 5-star rating or thumbs up if you watch it on YouTube and leave a review, that goes a long way. And we have more eyes on those important stories and messages that we share here. And today is not different. I have a wonderful guest here today, John Kippen. First of all, hello, John, and welcome.
Thank you, Sabine. Happy to be here.
Yes. And for those listeners who don't watch it on my YouTube channel, just listen to the podcast, I want to just give you a little context to what you are hearing. Right now, I see you, John, a beautiful soul and storyteller. And the one side of your face is paralyzed. You had to overcome some speech impediments.
I did. It's funny. After my brain surgery, which caused the facial paralysis, one syllable in the English language, I have trouble saying. It's 2 consecutive P's, like in the word pepper, or ironically enough, in my own last name.
Exactly.
Life can be cruel sometimes, you know?
So, of course, I would love to get into your story because your story is so amazing. And it's really a story of making the decision not to let something that happened in your life ruin your life, but you took it as an advantage. And you've been even on many magazines and even on a documentary with Jaime Lee Curtis. So, first of all, tell us what happened and why your face is now half side paralyzed.
I'll start at the beginning really quickly. Born to 2 wonderful parents, both attorneys, living in Southern California and Los Angeles area. I had everything I needed. Went to a nice school, went to college, studied theater, got into computers, started a computer consulting company when I was in college, specializing in companies that produce television commercials. Had a girlfriend. Everything was going well. And then all of a sudden, I started having trouble hearing men's voices on the phone, which then led to dizziness. And finally, after having an MRI, the doctor saw something in the MRI and sent me to a specialist. And I remember sitting on the examining table bench, with the tissue paper under my bum, just trying to understand what was happening. And the doctor came in and looked at the MRI, and then he got on the phone and called a neurosurgeon. Neurosurgeon came in. They talked for a minute. Neurosurgeon left, and the doctor turned around and said, "John, you have a 4.5 centimeter acoustic neuroma brain tumor. It's benign, but it's growing and it's killing you because it's displacing your brain stem."
Let me just ask you that. I did not know that even sometimes we think, oh, if it's benign, no big deal, right? But in your case, because it's still growing.
Yeah, with very little room in my skull for it to grow. So it was causing significant dizziness issues. So they ended up pushing 2 other patients off, postponing their surgeries to do mine within a week of when I was diagnosed.
Wow. That says something, right?
Yeah. I mean, they were really concerned that I wouldn't be able to survive without this surgery. And they didn't give me a chance to think about it. It was just like, this is what's happening. We're the best in the country at removing these kind of tumors. Just trust us. And the next thing I know, arriving at the hospital the night before surgery, trying to get a few hours of sleep. 6 a.m., the orderly comes on, says, "Okay, get undressed, put this gown on and get on this table." And I remember them rolling this gurney towards the operating room.
Wow.
And, your mind is going 100 miles an hour.
I bet.
I remember getting to the pre-op area, and the nurse with her facial mask looked down and said, "John, do you want me to shave your head before I put you under or after?" And I said, "Do it now. Do it afterwards. I don't want to, whatever." So I remember them saying, "Okay, count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2." I was out. And the next thing I know, I'm waking up in surgical recovery. And my dad is sitting on the side of the bed holding my hand. And it took me a couple minutes to come to. It was like I was in the deep pool trying to swim to the surface. And I heard these faint, John, John, John. And it was a struggle to get conscious. But when I came to, of course, I saw my dad and he was smiling. But I looked around the room and I didn't see my mom. So I asked for my glasses. And all of a sudden I started putting the glasses on and realized my head's bandaged. So that I had to figure out how to get my glasses. I looked across the room and my mom was standing as far away as she could. And the look on her face was one of horror. What did these doctors do to my poor son's face? And at this point, all I knew was I was exhausted, but the dizziness was gone. And I was elated that the dizziness is gone with the surgery. But I didn't realize that my face had been affected until my mom handed me her compact. And I looked in it and I went. So fortunately, the doctor came in very shortly thereafter and said, John, we were successful in removing all of the tumor. As we were closing your incision, we potentially traumatized your facial nerve, but we think it's because of the swelling. And as soon as the swelling goes down, we expect your facial nerve to return functioning properly. And so at that point, I was like, okay, I'll be patient. And I spent the week in the hospital and went home, and I spent a week, and then all of a sudden I coughed, and I realized that I had a spinal fluid leak coming out of the base of the incision.
Oh my
So I had to go
gosh.
back, and they had to do another surgery. First one was almost 16 hours. The second was only 1 hour. But, I was hopeful that my face would come back. I was still able to talk to clients on the phone, and it left me deaf in my left ear and with a speech impediment, which I went through speech therapy to try to overcome.
How long did it take with speech therapy to have, to speak the two P's in a row and have a clear speech again?
Couple months.
Couple months.
Come on. But as I said, it was my last name, so I had to be conscious about enunciating properly.
Yeah.
And I found that I would slow down and I would imagine my lips making those two P syllables. And now people don't really hear it as much unless they're on the phone. And if they're on the phone, they hear, it's funny. They'll say, your name is John Kippen. Kitten like a cat, right? No. P, Kippen, kitten like a cat. So they can't really hear the difference. But anyway, that was the least of my problems.
I bet it was. So now you have this situation and luckily, you survived and
Right.
the tumor was removed. So that was a good thing. And I think you probably were grateful for that. But as a young man, all of a sudden have that disfiguration of your face. So how did you deal with that?
I hid. I stayed at home. I could run my computer company without having to go outside. I had people who worked for me. So I could send them out. I could speak to clients on the phone. I could speak to my guys on the phone. I just wasn't having fun. I wasn't going out and celebrating with friends. I missed high school reunions, college reunions. Anytime that I had to be in front of people, I was shied away because I didn't want to have to explain why my face was paralyzed. I didn't want to have to see the oh my God, the sympathy looks, the judgment looks. And adults were okay, but I tell a story in my TED Talk. You can find it on YouTube. It's got over 1 million views now. About I was at a restaurant having dinner by myself. And this 5 or 6-year-old boy came over and said, Mister, what's wrong with your face? This is still in the healing period. But I decided to take the high road and say, you have a really good question. And then before I could continue, his mom got up, grabbed him by the arm, pulled him back and said, don't bother this man. He has enough troubles already. And then I was really motivated to tell this young man what had happened. So I got up from my table, went over and kneeled down so I was eye level with the little boy, and I said, I had a medical procedure that doesn't allow me to move my face, but it's my new face, and I love it because it's cool. It's different. Well, it's different just like yours. And the boy started smiling, and then he grabbed his face, his cheeks, with his two hands and started distorting his face so he could mimic me. And I remember him looking up to Mom and saying, Mom, look, I can do that too.
Are children just precious? They are so innocent. They don't know about any judgment or whatnot. They ask a very curious question. And once you explain it, then they're okay with that, right? I think adults have a bigger problem with that. How did his mom respond?
She was embarrassed. She suddenly realized that I was giving her son a very valuable lesson. And that's the subject of the TED Talk, is how to treat people who are different with respect and compassion. And I remember her parents coming to tears over it because they realized how they were imposing their views upon their son and trying to protect their son and protect me from a potentially embarrassing situation. And I had started to own my adversity at that point.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure this boy knew that if he saw someone who's different, be curious, but don't shy away.
That's
So many
right.
times I'd walk down the street and on a sidewalk, and someone would see me coming down the sidewalk, and they'd cross the street so they could walk on the other side. And I don't know what was going through their head, whether or not they didn't want to deal with it, where they didn't want their looks to embarrass me, or if they were embarrassed. I don't know.
Well, we don't know what other people think. And hopefully, by sharing your story on this podcast or TEDx stage or wherever you share the story, on whatever stage you share your story, that gives people also hope and kind of probably a permission for them to just look at you and smile without, feeling embarrassed about it or without crossing the street. Now, you are also a magician.
Yeah.
I saw the magic that you do and think this is a wonderful way because as a performing artist, I know the power of that métier. Either a musician, singer, dancer, actor, it doesn't matter. Entertainment is very healing. So how did you get to become a magician?
Well, my uncle pulled a quarter out of my ear when I was 5 or 6. And that got me interested in magic. And then I got a summer job at a magic shop, and I was always toying around with magic. But after my surgery, I hid from life for over 12 years. I got rid of all the mirrors in my house. I didn't pose for a photograph for over 12 years. I didn't want to be constantly reminded of my facial paralysis. I gained all sorts of weight, and, I just, I wasn't living life.
So what changed? How did you get over that fear, embarrassment, and just that hiding? Was there a point in your life that you made a decision? Was there something that happened?
As I got more bored at home in Los Angeles, there are a whole bunch of casinos, card clubs, and I love playing poker. So I would drive down to a poker room because no one knew who I was. I would sit at a poker table, and no one cares what I look like. No, they just wanted my money. And I started to develop friendships with some of these gamblers who were there day in, day out. And I thought about it, and I was like, I don't want these degenerate gamblers to be my close circle of friends. So I curtailed my gambling. And one day I saw a magic special on TV starring David Copperfield. And somehow the subject of the Magic Castle, which is a private club for magicians in Hollywood, came up. And I joined as a magician. And I went through the audition process, and they immediately were caring and immediately passed me and gave me my member pin so I could perform. And so I would kind of lurk and look at magicians, and every once in a while I'd do one trick and then move on. And then I realized that I was having so much fun. And when I performed magic, people were able to look beyond my facial paralysis and into my heart.
Yeah.
I have countless stories. One I tell almost every time we talk about this. I was looking for a group of people to do a show, and this woman was walking down the hallway, and she was dressed in baggy black clothes, wearing a hat that reminded me of a witch's hat. And you could tell just by her facial expression she didn't want to be there, that her friends had drug her there, and she would rather be home watching television. So as she approached, I said, "Hi, how are you?" And she stopped. And the look just said, "Leave me the heck alone." And she continued catching up to her friends. Well, I ignored her and I followed her and I caught up with the friends of the whole group. And I said, "Guys, are you having a good time?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah, this is amazing." And I said, "Yeah, but have you seen any really good close-up magic?" And they shrugged their shoulders. So I said, "Okay, come on, let's go." And I took them to a table in the corner that had a felt on it so I could do close-up sleight of hand. And the woman who was dressed in baggy black clothes, her name was Darren. And I put her to my right. And I made every magical moment because she did something. She touched the card. She thought of this. She wrote something down. But whatever she did, the magic happened. And my goal for that interaction, that 30-minute show, was just to get Darren to smile. That was it. That was my only purpose for that one performance. So within minutes, she was sitting up straight. And she ditched the hat. And she started to smile, and her eyes started to sparkle. And I could tell whatever baggage she brought with her that night was gone. So I finished my show. And they, normally audiences would clap and they'd say thank you and they'd move on. But this group wanted more. So I shared the story about how I hid from life for 12 years from cameras and mirrors. And that all changed August 3rd, 2017, when I went to my first magic convention in Las Vegas. And I was amongst the greatest minds in magic. And I wanted pictures to remember these so badly that I summoned the courage to take photos with these great magicians. And I got home and I uploaded the photos to my computer, and it dawned on me, if these great magicians had no trouble taking a picture with me, what was my problem?
It's so good that you said that, because so often the problem is really within us,
Yeah.
because the only change that we can make, or if we want to make change, it starts with us and not with anybody else.
So anyway, I shared that story with Darren and her friend.
Mhm.
And then Darren stood and she motioned for me to stand. And I did. And she gave me one of these hugs that you don't soon forget. It's like you haven't seen your sister in 20 years kind of hug.
Mhm.
She was holding on for dear life. And after she let go, she said, "John, I need to share something with you. 4 years ago, I had a double mastectomy because I have the BRCA1 gene. And my mom, my aunt, my sister, they all had their breasts proactively removed. And I was the last in the family to do that. And I didn't want to come out because I wasn't proud of who I was. I wasn't proud of my body without any breasts. I was not comfortable in my own skin. But I came and I sat with you and I marveled at your magic and realized that I was having an amazing time. And then I heard your story. And it made me understand for the first time that I've been hiding too. Clothes I'm choosing to wear and the funny hats and not making eye contact with people. And in that moment, she made a promise to herself, with her friends and me as witnesses, that would be the last night she would hide.
Wow.
And I fell back in my chair, totally overwhelmed. I had no intention. I couldn't imagine touching someone so profoundly, so deeply.
Hmm.
And she was crying, so she got up and went to the restroom to wash her face. And one of her friends at the table, her mouth was wide open. And she said, John, you don't understand. We've known Darren since college, and we've been trying to support her for the last 4 years since her surgery. And you did in 30 minutes what we've been trying to do for 4 years.
Yeah, sometimes a story can make the difference. A story told by a total stranger. And that is the power of storytelling. And this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I'm teaching aspiring speakers to
Uh-huh.
do to craft a powerful story. And obviously there is when you become a public speaker, and you probably know it too, once you get onto the TEDx stage, they train you and they work with you to make it very impactful. Because you can have a powerful story, but the way you tell it can even amplify that story and the feeling that and how it touches people. So
Well,
uh,
fortunately, I had a theatrical background, so I had done theater.
here
I
you go. Yep.
was being on stage.
Mm.
But I have a little trick. Right before I went on stage, right before the MC went out to introduce me, I did a magic trick for him. 30 seconds before he went on stage, I turned Monopoly money into real money and then turned it back with a story. And so now he went on stage to introduce me, and he was full of excitement. He was able to warm the audience up for me. So when I walked on stage, there were 800 to 1,000 people. I only could see the first couple rows, but I could feel their love. I could feel their attention. It was incredible.
I bet
I
it
felt
was.
at home.
Yeah.
You know, as a speaker, the first few minutes you have to get the audience invested in listening to you.
Hmm.
But the MC did all that work for me.
Well, that's great, but you don't always have a good MC, so you need to know how to
Of
grab
course.
your audience attention from the get-go. And of course, being a magician, I can only imagine you can start with a trick, and boom, you have the eyes on you. Hey, I'm curious. You are part of a documentary. How did that happen? Did someone come to you, or were you applying to be part of a documentary? So enlighten us on that.
So, as part of my IT company, I worked for a company, and one of the employees was a amateur filmmaker. And we had become friends, and he knew my story. And he came to me one day when I was working on his computer and said, John, I want to film a documentary on your story. And I was flattered. I was like, cool. Till I realized I would be paying for the documentary.
Mhm,
But at that point, it didn't matter because I was all in.
mhm.
And so we decided to film the making of the TED Talk as part of the documentary. We filmed taking the train from LA to San Diego, where it was at UCSD, and make that part of the imagery in the documentary. And, being a computer guy in LA, I have celebrity clients.
Mhm.
And the one celebrity client that I identified with the most was Jaime Lee Curtis. She knew me before the surgery and after the surgery.
Mhm.
And she kind of adopted me. She has two kids of her own, but they're adopted.
Mhm.
And I was her third child, I think. So I remember sitting in front of a computer and I said, oh, by the way, Jamie, a friend of mine, he is going to do a documentary on me and my story. And I sat there just staring at the screen. And all of a sudden, Jamie says, and? And I'm trying to get the courage to ask her. And she goes, and? And I turned to Jamie and I said, will you be in my documentary? And she said, yeah. And she was amazing. So professional, so giving of her time and her expertise. She made the documentary so much better. And she was just talking about who I was before the surgery and who I was after the surgery and what I had gone through and how proud she was of me.
I love Jamie Lee Curtis. She is not only a fabulous actress, but she is also, from what I know, I don't know her personally, obviously, but just how she comes across as a very caring human being.
She
And
really
you
is.
don't often see that in Hollywood or the entertainment industry, period. Trust me, I have been in the entertainment industry for many, many years. So it's always a blessing if you see a person so caring. So, John, let me ask you,
Um,
our time here is coming to a close. That's exactly what I want to ask you. That is the documentary.
no, this is actually my book.
Oh, that's your book?
The book is entitled Playing the Hand You Were Dealt.
I love that.
Jaime Lee wrote the foreword. And in a few minutes towards the end of the podcast, I'll be giving your listeners a link so they can download a PDF copy of my book.
Perfect. I am sure that everybody would love it. Now, how is your life now after doing the documentary and the TED Talk? Did something change? And how does it affect you or your life now?
I became an empath. I cared more about others than I did myself. I had learned that my facial paralysis no longer defined me. I tell this funny story that in March 2020, when the pandemic hit, covering your face with a mask became not only politically correct, but government mandated. And I had spent 12 years not hiding my face. So I found a company and I sent them a picture of my mouth, and they printed that picture on the mask. So I would walk around and strangers would look at it and not understand. But people who knew me would do a double take. And they'd immediately understand that John refuses to hide his face, even through a global pandemic. I'm a creative problem solver. And I get joy from helping others. And that's why I started my resilience and empowerment coaching program. Because I've helped people go through cancer. I help people get through the horrific fires we had in Los Angeles in the beginning of the year. I've helped people be caregivers for their family members going through dementia because my dad went through it. And again, it's my problem-solving skills that allows me to provide support for my coaching clients. And, once we build a rapport, the first couple of weeks, we build rapport and they learn enough to trust me to open up and share their limiting beliefs. Then we just start going through my program, and each session talks about a different tool that I developed as I reverse engineered my recovery. And I share those tools with my clients, and they work.
Yeah.
Resonate. They make a difference.
Yeah, because you experienced that. So it's not just, a coaching program from someone who learned how to ask the right question. No, you developed it from your own experience, and
Right.
that makes a big difference. So if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
They can go to my name on the web, johnkippen.com, and that's my master site. You can see magic. You can buy a copy of my book. You can go to my speaking section or my coaching section and learn a little bit about me. You can search me on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. I'm everywhere.
That is great. So if you could leave our audience members with one piece of advice, what would that be?
2 pieces of advice.
2 pieces. Okay, great.
Being different can be your superpower, and feed your heart with your art or your passion. Let what you're passionate about fill yourself with joy, because that joy that you are feeling for doing what you love to do is very attractive. And people will be drawn to you, not in a physical way, but just they will feel that sense of confidence, and they'll want to drink your secret sauce.
That is a very, very good piece of advice. Being different is your superpower. And then,
Your heart.
be a giver from the heart. Yeah. And that's one of the things I, lately have been thinking about seeing and scrolling through social media, just so many quote unquote fake stuff that is out there. And of course, with AI nowadays, it's very hard sometimes to distinguish between is it real or not. But people like you who are there, speak from the heart and give from the heart and just be their authentic self. I know that word sometimes is overused nowadays, but it really is true. Just be who you are. And I have to be reminded of that myself once in a while when I go off too much into the head, right? So, Sabine, just be who you are.
You got to lead by your heart.
Exactly. Lead by your heart. Mic drop. Now, I would love to talk for hours with you, John, but we are at the end of our show. And for the listeners who are still here, you have a surprise for them.
Go to johnkippen.com/free gift. And you'll be able to download the book that Jamie wrote, The Power of. It became a bestseller within 3 hours of me publishing it.
Beautiful.
It's filled with amazing stories of me. I live my life feeling it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And as that has bitten me in the butt numerous times, but it's also given me life experiences that I could never even imagined. You just you want to do something? Just go and do it. Don't care what other people are going to say.
Exactly.
Because that is what makes you you. That is what makes you successful, is dreaming. I guess we could do a second podcast sometime later. I have so much more to say. But, adults don't dream anymore.
Mm-hmm.
As a kid, your parents have an adult friend over, right? And they come over and they're introduced to you and they go, Johnny, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want a policeman. No, a fireman. No, I want to be a rock star. And then I would go into my room and grab 2 rulers and start hanging on stuff like was playing the drums and get out my air guitar and start singing. And now I'm in this world of make-believe where everything is possible.
And that is a very good ending. Everything is possible when you allow yourself to dream and make it a reality, because whatever is in your thought can become your reality. Thank you so much, John, for being here today.
Thank you.
And I'm sure we are going to see each other again at one of the stages.
Excellent. Thank you so much.